All right, so we had a last-minute change, and so we were debating what to do, and Charlotte Hughes, who's our executive director, says, "Oh, you and Tim should talk about writing." And we're like, okay. And so while we do this, we've solicited some questions. So our topic is writing and adventuring in Prince William Sound. I'm calling this Tim Unchained, and Paul Unchained. So if you have questions for us, Tim just left the Forest Service after how many, 30 years? First working the Tongass in the wilderness program there, and then running the wilderness program here in the Glacier District. And was also really the inspiration of one of many people who inspired in the creation of the Prince William Sound Stewardship Foundation. And so we're going to try this. And so hand me the questions. And I'm going to ask, you can ask me a question, I'm going to ask you a question. And we'll just have a little conversation here, like an author stand. And the other job that Tim has that you all should know is an associate editor for Alaska Magazine. So he wears multiple hats. And I wrote a book, and I think Nick Oznak showed up here. Yeah, Nick's there. He's the owner of Prince William Sound Books, originally started by Jim and Nancy Lethko. And that's a whole history right there, the Lethkos, of their involvement in conservation in Prince William Sound. But they also published a book of mine called Kayaking and Camping in Prince William Sound. So I'm going to start with Tim, and you can throw a question at me, and we'll just go back and forth.
Are these other questions?
These are ones we could ask, or you could use any other question you want. So we're weighing this a little bit here. So I guess I'm going to start with this one. Can you share a special moment in the field that changed your perspective on how glaciers, forests, and marine life are connected?
Okay. So I'm currently, as of like 10 minutes ago, working on a deadline for an article on the on the Tracy Arm landslide. So it's very much front of mind right now. So you just asked me a moment that connected things for me. Yeah, cool. Well, this is off the cuff, but anyhow, one time I was camped near the South Sawyer Glacier in Tracy Arm, very close to it. About 25 years ago, and I was just bouldering on some rocks there, and the glacier had a major calving, and I'd never seen it do this before, but it sent waves in a way that completely flooded this place we were camping, and I was on the rocks, hanging on to them, and the water actually came up to my neck 3 times as the subsequent waves came up. And anyhow, that's a very memorable experience. It ties to what I'm working on right now on landslides, which will come up during the symposium. And it made me think a lot. Interestingly, this is many years ago, and I couldn't possibly have pieced together what's happening today with landslides and retreating glaciers, but it did make me and my colleagues look more closely at the landscape and see that glacial recession isn't just about lupin and fireweed and mosses and things coming together. Sometimes it entails massive catastrophic events, from big unexpected calvings to what we're experiencing now, these huge landslides. And there is a lot of evidence in that Tracy Arm prior to what happened last year. And if you're not familiar, last year was a large landslide that triggered a wave over 1,500 feet tall and took out a lot of Tracy Arm. So did we do it?
Yeah.
Am I doing, what happens next?
So now I'm going to answer the question. You pick one for me. So my moment was sort of a bunch of series of moments that came together, and including, like, I remember a memorable evening at a Berry Arm at the Cox Glacier, and there used to be a thing called the Black Sand Beach, which is now no longer. It's buried in a landslide. But sitting there with a guy named Cox. His last name was Cox, and this was on a Knowles course in probably 86, and he was enamored by the calving glaciers, and we spent the whole night sitting there watching that glacier, and I thought, wow, that's such an awesome thing. And there's all these other little things that came together. I came up from Wyoming in 84, 85, and all of a sudden I was slowly falling in love with Alaska and Prince William Sound. And then the big moment was the Exxon Valdez oil spill. And it's like, you don't know, what you're missing until it's gone. And at that moment in March of 1989, it seemed like it was gone. Like it was just like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that could ever happen. And it was. And that really started my thinking about how to communicate and how to talk to people. Like I was having to get in front of people because there weren't that many of us out here that spent a lot of time in the Sound besides the indigenous people. I mean, the Forest Service wasn't really even out here. They were coming to us going, where are the beaches? What do we do? Like, what do we protect, right? And so we, being the people who, through mostly Knowles, have been out here for decades, and so this communal knowledge, were helping them. And I was realizing I have to learn how to talk and communicate in an intelligent way about this place I love in order to get it the attention it needed. So that was my moment, in a very odd thing. Like it was this disaster, but on the other hand, it really motivated me to this day to be involved in a thing like Prince William Sound Stewardship Foundation. Okay, what do you got for me?
This might be the most important question of the whole symposium for someone. What advice, and I love this question, what advice would you give a 25-year-old guide? What advice would you give 25-year-old guides who are writing about adventuring in life in Prince William Sound?
Yeah. So I think this is advice. If we were 25 years old, we'd go back and what would we tell someone? And because this is sort of a guide training, and I'm like, well, keep a journal. I mean, that's an easy one, but sometimes not so easy. But nowadays, I mean, what does that mean? Well, you got your phone, you're talking to it, right? And I'll transcribe it. I mean, to me, I don't do that, but it seems like that's a thing. I'm amazed by the photos. And we all took a lot of photos today, but be thoughtful about that a little bit. Like I have a photo of Barry Arm and all that in 1986. And I'm like, I got to find that photo. Like some of that stuff becomes super important. And then just communicating and writing, and because you never know in 20 or 30 years when someone like Nancy Lethko, who did this with me in about 2000, she said, hey, why don't you write a guidebook? I'm like, oh, guidebook, okay. And then I had to sort of go through my head and start recreating all the places I'd been and thinking about what I'd done. So having notes and having stuff documented really helped me come up with that. That's my advice.
Awesome. Yeah, I was just thinking of myself at 25, and which actually was a thing, believe it or not. But anyhow, the two pieces of advice I would give is similar to what Paul is saying. Write it all down as it's happening. If you're a Forest Service guy, put down your work for a little while. Put away the radio and write it all down. Take the pictures, transcribe it into your phone. If you're a guide, have them set up camp. Take those opportunities to always be writing as it's happening, because you lose it so fast. And yeah, like keep a journal. Just be out there writing as you can and make time for it. And then the second part is have confidence in your writing, especially when you're 25. You feel like you haven't lived very much yet, or you don't know how to break into things and all that kind of stuff. But just have confidence and go for it, because the time goes by so quickly. So write it all down, have confidence, and share that writing.
Here's one. What is the most challenging part of capturing the voice of a place that is immense and wild as Prince William Sound?
What is most challenging about capturing it is sort of what I just said. When you write it all down, cool. But then you have all this garbage that you have to sort through. And so, yeah, write it all down, and then distilling that, because we're experiencing, whether you talk about whatever, harbor seals popping on icebergs or landslides or any of the zillions of things that we're watching every day out there, you just like absorbed in the detail and writing it all down. That's what you're supposed to do. But then weeding out what really mattered and what crystallizes that voice, that's the hardest thing. The editing process, but also just going through those notes and finding what really captures that voice.
I've been trying to work on a novel, a historical novel about Prince William Sound for years now, and it'll be done by the time I'm dead, I promised. Well, lately I've been like, oh, how do I describe some of this stuff? And I went and wrote something about, I was out at a Shotgun Cove, and we're anchored next to the buoy with all the sea lions, and there's sea lions going off, and there's a waterfall, and the hermit thrush were starting to sing. And so I thought, how can I write this into something and make it descriptive? And I decided, and I've been reading a book called A Walk Through the Park. It's about a guy who walked through the Grand Canyon and had this, it's a really good book, by the way, but it's sort of an epic walk. And he was using colors to describe it. And I thought, oh, I'm going to use a symphony to describe it. So I compared, and this is another question about metaphors in here, I used a symphony or a trio as describing it. So that's sort of one way I go about doing it. And the other way I do it is I draw a lot. Like instead of taking a photo, in my tent at night, I'll get a sketch pad out and I'll draw things that I saw. And that somehow, I think the writing and the drawing, and I'm a terrible drawer, I'm not even that good of a writer, really, compared to like Tim, but by drawing, it sort of brings things together to me. It's like, oh, okay, now I'm getting, something about drawing to me really helps bring out, sort of answers that question to how I describe things.
Do you ask me now?
You asked me, I think.
You just said, I forgot. I was engrossed in your answer. I forgot where we were. Paul, how has your relationship with the natural world changed since you began writing about it?
Oh, observation, for sure. Like it brings you out of your own head. Like by thinking, oh, I'm gonna have to write about this, I'm gonna have to talk to about this about someone else, to someone else. All of a sudden, it spins me out of my head into looking around way better. I think that's how I would. That's how it's changed my relationship. I'm way more observant.
I don't know if those were in order. How? To read the question again, how has your relationship with the natural world changed since you began writing about it? And my relationship with the natural world has always been about writing about it. It is, the two have always been in tandem and part of the same experience. And so I think that because of that, writing has deepened my relationship with the natural world, because I'm always on this trip where I'm writing about it in my head, or if I can set aside that time later, I'm writing about it in the field or whatever. And so and that means that as writing, that means I'm always trying to check in with my sensory observations. And obviously, the primary one is what you see and then what you hear. And it's easy to underestimate what you hear, but what you hear is really essential, but also what you feel and all your other senses. I forget what the other ones are right now, but you're just constantly checking in with your senses and making those notations and trying to remember them later, so you write them down. And as I experience a rich moment or a plain moment or a rainy moment, I'm always thinking about what do you see? What do you feel? What's this like? Capture that later.
That's great. Very good. What topics and issues need to be written about Prince William Sound or communicated? And you can say anyone.
I can now.
You can now, yeah.
Thanks for the cue. I was going to say Paul Twardock, but then Paul gave me a tip. Right? Okay. Well, I'm going to go with that. Yeah. So what needs to be written about now? Well, we find ourselves in a unique moment, don't we, with our public lands agencies and those who steward our lands. And so, yeah, to me, a fascinating part of the story, because of my day job, a fascinating part of the story always has been how people take care of the land and how land takes care of people. And we are at a moment where that relationship with our federal land management and other agencies is quite strained. And so the thing that when people say successful writing, you always involve people. You always make people part of your story, so you make the natural relatable. Well, I think one of the most relatable, one of the most fascinating parts of our relationship with the natural world is how we attempt to manage it, and that's, for us, that's through our agencies. And our agencies are in a world of hurt right now. It's a lot. They always needed our help. They always needed more attention, because it's kind of an unsung thing that we're doing with the Forest Service or other agencies to manage these lands. It's kind of unsung, and the government can be unpopular, deservedly so sometimes. But that's a really interesting thing. And so here we have Prince William Sound, and it's managed, whether you're talking about the water itself or pollutants or marine species or terrestrial species or the land, it's managed by all these different agencies. It's very complicated. It's not very accessible, but that's something to me that really needs to be written about. We have this very pressing emergency with our climate, with ocean acidification, with biodiversity. And so what are we doing about that? Well, who's at the wheel? The wheel oftentimes is the agencies, and you can empower them, and you can also empower people to understand their mission and hopefully affect their mission and call them to the table to act on their mission.
I got a follow-up question for you. Yeah, I have a follow-up question for you. What do you recommend people to do to support people in the agencies, in the Forest Service in particular?
Okay, so I don't have a great answer there, but it's what you hear all the time. To be active participants in your democracy doesn't mean to turn out to vote every 4 years. It means to get, if your interest is the land, if your business is reliant on the water or the land, or if you as a person or a writer or whatever are connected to the land, then the slice of democracy that should be incredibly important to you is the people managing the land, and how do you engage with them? You get to know them. Maybe they work with an organization like the Prince William Sound Stewardship Foundation, which actually goes out in the land and does stewardship with the agency. And maybe you sign up for that, or you help support it. You get to know, you come to places like this, you get to know the people who manage your land, and you let them know how you feel, and you help them understand the place. Because I know, I can't believe I'm going to say this, as a former federal employee, there's only very few of us, and there's a lot to be done, including trainings and bureaucracy and all kinds of stuff that prevents you from getting on the land. I worked for the Forest Service for 30 years, and from the very beginning, I knew that my job was to get to know outfitter guides and residents and stakeholders as best as possible, because I only had so much time to spend on the land, but they knew the land inside and out and would help me know it and help me inform the agency. So that's what I'm saying you can do from the outside as well. Get to know the people, pay attention to the boring papers that are coming out and the calls for comments. Get out on the land with the agencies and give them what for.
Thanks, Tim. I'll answer that. I think we'll go to any questions you have. We have a few minutes left. I would say there's areas of writing and communication. One that I'm interested in is history and understanding how things have changed and will change. So I think that's a topic that can be talked about, especially the history here and the rich history going back thousands of years. I was talking to an elder, and they're like, well, everywhere we go, anybody goes, there's a story of where you go, whether it's Decision Point or Passage Canal or a south end of Colross. There's a long history there with stories behind it. So trying to understand that history and respect it is really, really important. And so that's part. One is document and change. So I talked about that a little bit, like my photos of the glaciers, but under writing about that, what you see from year to year, and whether that's photography, writing, art, or drawing, however you do it, that's another important story. And then issues of things that you see going on or informing. I was talking to someone the other day about sort of the Seward Safe Highway project. It's not really Prince William Sound. Like, what does that have to do with Prince William Sound? Well, every time there's an increase in access to Prince William Sound, there's more people, which isn't a terrible thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But it brings, there's consequences to that. So understanding these things that occur and be able to communicate informed in communication with other people about that is super important. So questions from the audience or online? We've got time for a couple questions. Oh, we got one there. Yeah.
I was thinking about, You know how sometimes when you roll through life and you look back and you wish you would have done something, you just wish you would have done something, you'd have made time for this or that or whatever. I just wonder whether it's writing or a place that you went that you never went back to, or just whatever that might be. Like, was there ever anything that you regretted not redoing or doing something about or something like that?
Like specific to writing, or yeah. Well, I guess what I would say kind of would just bookend to my first point about if you're young and you're writing, don't be afraid to share that writing. And so I don't know if it's exactly a regret or not, but if I can go back in time, I would have been more confident to share that writing. But you only know what you know. You got to spend years learning. Well, how do you share that? But putting the work in early to understand how to share your writing, have confidence in your voice, and another thing I didn't do, spend time with other writers, because that also is an act of bravery that there's many barriers to that, and we can be busy with our daily life and not do that. So spend time with artists or writers and learn how to share your craft. I think that's what I would have spent more time on.
That's a good question. I don't really have too many regrets, though. I would say I wish I would have been shrimping about 30 years ago when there was a lot more shrimp out there, but I can't do anything about that anymore. I think there are certain things that I'm really proud of that we did that at the time seemed sort of silly, conservation-wise, like activism-wise. And there's other things I wish I would have done a little more. Like I saw it, and I knew it was important, and I didn't act on it. And so a lot of times, that can be anything, writing, it can be activism, it can be a trip you want to do, but especially when you're 25 or any age, if you have something, you're, boy, that sounds like a really cool idea. Well, go do it. Like, take the risk and do it, because you won't regret. You'll regret not doing it, but don't sit there and go, well, I gotta do this, I do that, and I have to do all these chores and stuff like that. Make time for that gut feeling that, boy, I really should paddle to Cordova, or I really should take that trip and spend 2 weeks on the boat out in the Sound once, right? Because you'll never regret those. I think that's our time up, so thank you very much, and we'll have our next speaker coming up. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Scott. That was a great last answer.